but with. There is a quiet rhythm to life, one that hums beneath the noise we chase and the fears we flee. With. And in that silence, between a breath and a thought, exist truths we often overlook, not out of defiance but distraction, but with. Like waves that forget the ocean they belong to, we drift from the ancient wisdom whispered in our struggles, but with. The teachings wrapped in the texture of pain or the soft revelations hiding in moments of stillness. Yet each challenge, each delay, with, is not a detour, but part of a greater choreography. The universe teaching us through contrast, through tension, through time. But with, what if misery is not punishment, but a call? A divine nudge toward remembrance, toward alignment with a purpose we once knew before we learned to forget. Perhaps life isn't about avoiding difficulty, but recognizing the music within it, with. And when we finally listen, we do not just find peace, we remember that we were always part of the symphony, with. Most of our misery begins with an illusion. The illusion that we are in control, that if we just try hard enough, with, plan thoroughly enough, and grasp tightly enough, life will finally yield to our will. We grow up being told to take charge, with, to dominate circumstances, to carve out success like sculptors chiseling marble. But life is not marble. It is not static, hard, or unyielding. Life is water, fluid, dancing and predictable. And yet we keep trying to grab hold of it, clench it in our fists, only to find that the tighter we hold on, the faster it slips through our fingers. This is not to say we are powerless. There is power, yes, but it is not in control. It is in harmony. In attunement, like a surfer does not control the wave, but learns to ride it, with. Like a musician does not control the symphony, but merges with the music, with. When we resist this truth, when we dig in our heels and try to make the river flow backward, we suffer, with. Because the river doesn't stop, the world doesn't freeze to accommodate our expectations. And the more we demand that it does, but with, the more exhausted we become. Think of how often our frustrations are born from things not going the way we imagined, with. Someone didn't behave the way we thought they should. A door we were certain would open, closed, with. Life turned left when we had already packed for the right. And in those moments the ego panics. It scrambles, with. It tightens its grip and says, "No, this isn't how it's supposed to be." But who told you how it was supposed to be? With, who wrote the script you're clinging to? Perhaps the misery lies not in what happened, with, but in our refusal to accept that we are not the sole authors of the story, with. When you watch the stars at night, have you noticed how they don't fight to shine? How the moon doesn't rush to be full, with, and the tides never beg for stillness. There is a natural order, an intelligence far deeper than intellect, guiding it all. And we are not separate from that order. We are expressions of it. Temporary waves in the vast ocean of being, with. But when we forget this, when we act as if we are the ocean itself, we drown in our own resistance. This isn't about giving up, with. It's about giving in. To the flow, to the rhythm, to the unspoken wisdom that pulses through everything. It's about seeing that sometimes, but with, what feels like life falling apart is actually life reassembling in a way that your current vision simply can't yet comprehend. Control is brittle. Surrender is supple. One cracks under pressure, the other bends, and in bending survives. It's a strange thing, isn't it? We fight so hard to steer the ship, not realizing that the current knows the way, but with. That perhaps what we call detours are precisely the paths we needed to take. That what we call loss is often life making space, with. And what we call failure might be the very silence required for the soul to finally speak. So, with, the question is not whether you're capable of controlling life. The real question is, can you trust it? With. Can you trust the unseen hands, the unspoken logic, the winding routes that seem senseless, but with, yet always lead somewhere meaningful in the end. Because if you dare to let go, then misery loosens its grip, fear softens, and life, in all its chows and curveballs, becomes something else entirely. It becomes beautiful, and in that moment, you don't master life, you become it. There's a curious thing we do with pain. We run from it, bury it, deny it, but as if pretending it's not there will somehow make it disappear. We call it a problem, an obstacle, something to fix or numb or silence. But doing so, we misunderstand its purpose entirely. Pain is not a malfunction. It is not a punishment. It is a profound form of communication, a language of the soul. You see, with every discomfort you feel, whether it's emotional heartbreak, quiet anxiety, or that deep, unspeakable emptiness, is not trying to hurt you. It's trying to reach you. It's life's way of tapping gently on your shoulder and saying, look here, there's something you've forgotten. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. Not out of cruelty, but because the message is important. We live in a culture obsessed with comfort. The moment we feel the slightest ache, be it physical, mental, or spiritual, we reach for distraction. We scroll, we drink, we busy ourselves, not realizing that what we are avoiding may actually be the doorway to something sacred. Because pain, if we allow it to, can be a guide. It doesn't show up without reason. It shows up when something within us is misaligned, when we are living out of step with our truth. Think about but when your body aches, it's often because you're doing something it wasn't built to do. The same applies to the soul, when life begins to feel hollow, when relationships drain you, when your work feels meaningless. These aren't signs that life is broken. They're signs that life is speaking, through tension, through grief, through the ache of something more trying to emerge. But of course, it's easier to label pain as the enemy, to slap on a smile, push forward, and call it strength. Yet real strength isn't found in denial, it's found in presence. But in having the courage to sit with your sorrow and ask it what it wants you to know. Because hidden inside that ache is often something incredibly beautiful: clarity, growth, direction, even love. The truth is, a pain refines us, it scrapes away the unnecessary, it humbles the ego, it burns away illusion, not always gently, no. Sometimes it feels like being torn open. But what's being torn is not your essence. It's the mask you thought was necessary, but the roles, the stories, the identities that no longer serve you. And underneath all that, something real, something luminous. I'm not suggesting you go searching for pain. Life will bring it without invitation. But when it comes, you don't need to slam the door. You can open it slowly, breathe, and say, but all right, I'm listening. And what you'll often find is that pain doesn't want to stay forever. It just wants to be acknowledged, to deliver its message and move on. Some of the most beautiful people you will ever meet are those who have faced deep suffering, not with resistance, but with awareness. They've allowed the fire to cleanse, not consume, and in doing so, they walk through life with a softness, a depth, with a presence that cannot be faked, because they know what it means to fall apart, and to still be whole. So the next time your heart aches or your spirit feels heavy, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it. Ask it, what are you here to teach me? You might be surprised by the wisdom it carries. For in the places we hurt the most often lie the truths we've been most afraid to hear. And when we finally listen, not with fear, but with openness, we find that pain was never the enemy at all. It was a forgotten teacher, waiting patiently in the shadows to lead us home. It's easy to believe we're alone, not just physically, but existentially. You walk through life inside your own mind, watching the world pass through your eyes, with feeling things that no one else seems to notice in quite the same way. And after a while, with the illusion sets in that you are somehow separate from everything else, that there is you, and then there is the rest of life, but with. This is one of the great misunderstandings and one of the quietest causes of misery. Because the truth is, you have never been alone, with, not once. You are not some isolated being, randomly dropped into the universe, trying to figure things out on your own. With, you are the universe, aware of itself, living through this particular shape, this particular name, this particular experience. But the mind, so used to categories and definitions, divides what is whole. It tells you, that tree is over there. That person is someone else. That pain isn't mine. That joy doesn't belong to me. And so, with, you begin to live in a fragmented world where connection is something to earn, not something you are. And yet, look closer, but with. Watch how your breath comes and goes, not by your doing, but through some rhythm that belongs to all things. Notice how the sunlight that falls on your skin also feeds the trees that give you air. With. How every word you speak was taught to you by others. How every emotion you've ever felt has been felt by millions. With. Long before your story began. We are deeply, intimately entangled, threads in the same great tapestry. With. And misery finds us when we forget this. When we believe we must carry the weight of living alone. But with, think about how different life feels when you stop seeing others as strangers and start seeing them as mirrors. With, each one reflecting something of yourself, your fears, your longings, your forgotten joys. The people who frustrate you, the ones who love you, the ones who pass by unnoticed. All of them aspects of this great unfolding play, not accidents, not extras, with just different expressions of the same one thing. And that one thing, that living force behind all forms, doesn't isolate. It connects. But connection, real connection, is not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It hums quietly, with, like roots beneath the earth, linking trees that never touch but still feed one another. It's in the way grief softens when shared, with, in the way you feel a stranger's pain even when you don't know their name. In the way a piece of music moves you, as though it were written just for you. Because in a way it was. Because in that moment you are not a person listening to a song, but with, you are sound recognizing itself. When we ignore this truth, when we see ourselves as separate, cut off, we begin to shrink. With, the world becomes hostile, people become competitors. The heart closes in self-protection. And the more we pull away, the more we forget who we truly are. Misery isn't just pain. It's the deep H of disconnection, with. The sense that you are floating in a universe that doesn't know your name. But that's the illusion. The truth is far more beautiful. With, you are not on the outside of life looking in. You are inside it, made of it. Not just surrounded by meaning, but made of meaning. With, and every moment of stillness, every breath of presence, is a return to that understanding. So let yourself dissolve a little. Let the walls soften. Let the idea that you are alone begin to fade. Because beyond the noise of thought, with, beyond the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we lack, there is something quietly holding all of this together, with, and that something is not separate from you. We spend so much of our lives in motion, running from one task to the next, with, one conversation to another, one ambition after the other. We fill the silence with noise, the stillness with activity, and the emptiness with distraction. Somewhere along the way, we began to fear the quiet, as if something dangerous waits for us there. But silence does not harm, it reveals. And stillness is not the absence of life, it is where life speaks most clearly. You see, With the deeper truths don't arrive shouting. They come quietly, like a breeze slipping through an open window, like the hush before dawn. But if you're too busy, too loud, too crowded within, you'll miss it. And that is one of the most tragic things a human being can do. To miss the wisdom that is already within them, simply because they never made space to listen. So many of us are looking outward for answers. We want someone to tell us who we are, what to do, how to feel whole again. We chase books, teachers, screens, beliefs, and some of these may help for a while. But eventually, you'll realize that no voice outside of you can replace the one you've silenced within. The whisper of your own soul has always been there. You just forgot how to hear it. There is a kind of intelligence that does not live in the intellect. It does not show up in facts or strategies or opinions. It is deeper, older. It's the same intelligence that tells the birds when to migrate and the trees when to let go of their leaves. It's the still, knowing presence inside you. The one that doesn't panic, doesn't rush, doesn't need to explain itself. And if you slow down just enough, you'll remember it's there. But slowing down is a radical act. In a world that rewards speed, it takes courage to be still. It takes trust to turn inward. It takes presence to sit with your own thoughts, your own breath, your own being. And yet, that is where transformation begins. Not in the next big breakthrough, but in the simple act of being here, completely. Sometimes people say, I don't know what I want, I don't know who I am anymore. But it's not they don't know. It's that they've never paused long enough to hear the answer. You cannot hear a subtle truth when you're drowning in noise, and you cannot recognize yourself in a mirror that never stops moving. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the most essential thing, remembering. Remembering what matters. Remembering what you already carry. Remembering that the universe isn't just out there. It's within you, breathing with you, asking nothing more than your attention, your real undivided attention. Even pain becomes clearer in silence. Even fear, when given enough stillness, begins to soften and show you where it came from. And joy, real joy, is not loud. It doesn't need an audience. It arises quietly, like a soft light from within, when you are at peace with simply being. So if you find yourself lost, overwhelmed, uncertain, don't rush to fix it. Don't distract yourself from the discomfort. Instead, become quiet, still. Let everything settle. Let the ripples calm until the water is clear again. You will not need to force the answers. They will come, as they always do, from the place they've always been. We are not meant to outrun life. We are meant to meet it. Fully, openly, honestly. And to do that, we must slow down. We must stop treating silence as a void and start recognizing it as the sacred space where the soul returns home. And when that happens, when you finally learn to listen, you won't need to chase clarity, because you'll remember you are it.